Hello, my name is Nigel Spearing and I was born in 1930. My father was a very keen Liberal and contested various elections. I went through the war with two narrow escapes from falling aircraft, one of a crashing American and one of a German flying bomb. But that gave me a bit of an international outlook, which in any case was strong in the family because I was concerned with the London Missionary Society and a strong nonconformist Christian with international leanings. The important thing I think was to get in mind is that very few people at the time of our entering the European community understood that our constitution in the United Kingdom not only had a unique history in providing parliamentary democracy to the whole of our, and I use the word in quotes, commonwealth and associated nations, but also the fundamentals of parliamentary democracy, which have been acknowledged throughout the world and which we in Britain were privileged to have as our own heritage. And my view has been, and I could prove it with anybody who takes the other point of view, or at least try to, if they would go into a debate, that the terms of our entry to the so-called European Common Market would be detrimental, indeed was contrary to the fundamentals of British parliamentary democracy as we understood it, and the British Constitution, which was in a number of documents and customs and practices which nobody actually contested. Namely, that under universal suffrage, and I add in parenthesis, ladies when I was born who were under 25 couldn't vote. We've only had that in my lifetime. It's relatively new in British history. Is that the Parliament is representative of the electorate and they call members of Parliament to account and choose who they prefer and the policies which they expound in order to represent them in the Crown Parliament. And a Parliament which took all the powers of the Crown and which, through our own system of government and monarchy, is a very good balance between the past and the future and the present. But the Crown and its officials and its First Lord of the Treasury, the so-called Prime Minister, and his government ministers are accountable to members of Parliament. And members of Parliament are accountable to their constituents and their voters and their terms of being there and the policies they wish to provide or change are up for election every so many years. But I would claim to anybody who takes the view that the Treaty of Rome and initially the so-called community, which wasn't really a community at all because it was a hierarchy, destroyed most of the elements in that historic war, indeed a civil war, unfortunately, which helped, together with the 1688 Act of Parliament, which we forget, or the people don't know, that the Crown succeeded their own power to Parliament. We have pioneered in the whole world. But the Treaty of Rome, under, I think, a logical and a debatable verdict, destroyed that. Why? Because the Treaty of Rome, and we all wanted peace after the war, we had to do reconstruction throughout Europe. I myself was involved in a small way in that. When I went under the British Council of Churches to a youth camp in Hamburg where British, American, French, German, Polish people, some of whom were refugees living in that town, were converting their Hamburg International Youth Club, in German of course, when it was called that, into an international youth club. And so I had stayed with a member of the Control Commission for Germany. An interesting word, isn't it, commission? The Commission for Germany was an international body of the Allies, which together with the growing German democratic bodies, which afterwards became a new and post-war Germany, at least in western part of Germany and then altogether, people who believed in the electors providing the policies and the rules by which a government runs. But the Treaty of Rome didn't do that. The Treaty of Rome said there shall be ever closer union between all nations in Europe, the western side at least, and that they should have a free market and no internal boundary inside that area. In other words, that was from the very roots, as you have heard from other people, including my friend Eric Deakins, a formula and indeed an instruction for a new state, a single body, because there were to be no internal boundaries. No internal boundaries for markets. Well, that may sound all right. The more we have a market, boys, and competition, the more we will all get better off. But we will have subsidies for agriculture. Now, I worked as a farm boy many years of every harvest for about 10 during the war and after. I'm very fond of agriculture, and we must support it. But they said, we can only support it in the same way over every part of this area. Nonsense. What about difference of soil? What about difference of climate? What about difference of skills? Oh no, it had to be a single market with single rules made by a single body of people. Well, that's all right, isn't it? Democratic. That's what we won in the war. We beat the German Nazis' dictatorship. But who can make the laws? Was it the Commission? But the Commission, as it was running Germany after war, was an authoritative body, just as Commission's officers are. But the European Community Commission is the only body who can suggest new laws. People in Britain don't know that any member of Parliament can suggest an Act of Parliament. He can write it out. Better than that, any constituent of a member of Parliament with a vote, actually anybody even without a vote can, but those with a vote can go to their MP and say, look, this law's not very good, can you see that there's a change? Or get the minister to put it up or put it in the party policy. Lots of party policies, nothing to do with left or right, that to do with citizenship. And any member of Parliament, just by writing something on a paper, can take it into an office in the House of Commons, and it could become a law. It may not, it may be opposed. It only needs one person to say no, and they have to put that off and have some procedures, and it can be turned down and turned around. But it can come from each elector. In the EU, right from the beginning, only the Commission can propose a law. Even the so-called European Parliament, which was a bit of a wrong name, because members of the European Parliament couldn't propose laws. Oh no. So it wasn't what people might have thought it was, or which some people pretended it to be.